you by Capuchin TV. Now, cases of suicide, murder or murder-suicide, or what others called homicide-suicide, have been on the rise lately. Just yesterday, a high school student was stabbed to death by another man in an alleged row over a woman. And early this month, a Laikipia University student was also stabbed to death by a roommate's boyfriend, allegedly in a role that is yet to be established. And then also, so many cases have been happening, hitting headlines of the same kind and nature. What really is happening here? We need to find out, does this have to do with the post-traumatic stress disorder? Today I have a counseling psychologist, and you're going to understand what post-traumatic stress disorder is and if it has anything to do with this, because even our law enforcers, even the leaders are not an exception. We have had stories, not just in Kenya, even across borders, about murder-suicide cases. So what really is happening? Let's get to hear from our guest first. Father Ndolo, welcome.
Thank you.
Please tell the viewer who you are and what you do.
My name is Reverend Father Francis Ndolo. I'm a priest of the Catholic Diocese of Kitui. I'm an ordinary priest there in charge of a parish, St. Andrew's Parish, Kwavonza. And I'm also a counselor, a trained counselor. And I do a lot of counseling there of my clients there, my parishioners, and other people in the community.
Thank you for making time to discuss this important issue on mental health. All right, and my name is Sasha Elizabeth. Let's talk mental health. And have you ever experienced, have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you've hit the dead end? And or do you know anyone who has been in such a situation? Did you overcome it? How did you overcome it? And what's your take about post-traumatic stress disorder? We're going to know what this is and the causes, and get in details about how it affects or it can prompt such kind of heinous bloodbaths in our communities. And remember, you can talk to us through our number 0717-424-866. You can also drop your feedback or comments on our social media platforms, on Facebook, Capuchin Television Network, Twitter, Capuchin TV Kenya, and YouTube, Capuchin Television. So welcome, let's talk health. Father Ndolo, please tell us, for the sake of those who don't understand this term, it could be a little bit complicated and subject to multivalent interpretations. So post-traumatic stress disorder, what is this?
It's a mental health disorder. It's a mental disorder. It's a mental illness that comes after one has undergone or faced a stressor in life. A stressor that can be man-made, a stressor that can be natural. As a reaction to that stressor. So as the name suggests, it comes after post-traumatic event, then after the reaction that comes is a disorder.
So it's an aftermath of that traumatic experience that someone goes through?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, what are some of the causes of post-traumatic stress disorder?
Many, but you can categorize them into two, man-made and also natural. Man-made things coming from the way we relate. You've just talked about people being stabbed to death, others being violated, assaulted. So things like rape, things like torture, things like kidnapping, things like home invasion, things like those will bring this. Natural things like being a survivor of a flood, or of a landslide, or say a volcanic eruption near you, or wildfire and things like that. Things that are horrifying, that terrify people. We would call them stressors. And when people face those, because there is danger of losing life or having very serious injuries, then people will react physiologically, will react also psychologically. And this exposure to this stressor could be direct or indirect. This way, I could be in a situation whereby I survive flooding. I was almost swept away, or there's a fire and I survive, or a road accident and I survive. Okay, that way I'm exposed to the stressor, and therefore my reaction could be, categorized as PTSD if I fit the diagnosis, of course. Then the other one is, for example, if I witness somebody else going through that, somebody being, violated, somebody being brutalized, and that. If I witness that, someone dying, being killed, and that. Or I hear that a relative of a very close, just hearing that my close friend or a relative has gone through a traumatic event, all right? Or just being exposed to the details, somebody explaining, talking to me, telling me how, how somebody, say for example, an accident, road accident, how the person was smashed, the legs were broken, the head was, the body parts were all over, blood splattering all over. Those details can also affect that. And even other less dramatic instances can also cause all this. Things like long repeated abuse, like neglect, abandonment, and things like that. Those can cause that, okay? So we have to be clear here, because for you to be diagnosed to be a PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, there are certain criteria that one has to meet. And one has to do with, you have to have stress symptoms at least for about 1 month. If it is less, we call that acute stress disorder. All right. So if I have been exposed, somebody has been exposed to this in those manner of ways, and then exhibits symptoms of this disorder, then the person may qualify for that diagnosis. Okay?
So one must have been through this kind of
Yes.
stress for over a month.
Yes, exhibiting the symptoms for over a month. Okay, so if it's a road accident, it's once. A few minutes.
So what are some of these
then
symptoms that they are supposed to exhibit?
Correct. There are very many, but for the simplicity of understanding, they are clustered into four. And the first one is avoidance. The first cluster of symptoms is avoidance. That the person will try to avoid people, objects, places that are associated with the event. So, like for example, if I'm in a road accident, I will try to avoid that spot, or I will be very scared of getting to my car or a bus or boda, whatever it is that was the cost of that. So somebody would try to avoid all those things. Then you also find that somebody may avoid thoughts about that, feelings that come with that. I try to avoid that, to shield myself from experiencing that pain again, you see. So these are the ones talking about the event. Somebody will numb, somebody will try to distract themselves with hobbies and keep yourself busy so that you don't think about that. That's one cluster, avoidance symptoms. Then the other one will be re-experiencing. The person now begins to feel and even to behave as if the event is happening again, as if the person is in this trauma situation. You know, like the person is the flood is happening, or this landslide is happening, or the rape is happening. the person begins to feel exactly that way, and also to sometimes to behave as if. Okay? So, re-experiencing.
So does that come in the form of hallucination?
Correct. Correct. Those ones are there. The person will begin to have those flashbacks. Somebody can begin to have nightmares, very bad dreams, intrusive, upsetting memories that will come. Or the person may begin to having the pains, begin trembling the way they were trembling, they are sweating, you see, re-experiencing symptoms. There's that cluster there. Then there's the other one, which is reactivity or hyper-arousal. The person is very aroused, the person is very frightened, just the way they were frightened. You know, when you face a horrific incident, your body is very edgy, very tense and all that. The person is like that. It's long after the incident, but the person is like that.
They're still frightened.
Yeah. So you find that they have problems with sleeping. So you fear to sleep, then the rapist will come. Or I sleep and then the flood will come again. Or I sleep and then the accident will happen again. So somebody is trying to be very, very alert so that they don't, So somebody, because of lack of sleep and all that, the person will begin to have very, very problems with anger, outbursts of anger, reckless behavior, and self-destructing behavior like self-medication, drinking, and all those kind of things. Difficult concentrating. Say, in a task like we are discussing here, the person will wander away and will not be here, will be maybe going back to what was happening there and that kind of a thing. So those are three of them. Then the last one is change of cognition and mood. The person will, if you know the person is like this, his personality or personality has changed. The mood is changed to be very low mood, slowed down. The way the person speaks, the way the person walks will be slowed down. Very kind of really typical depressive symptoms will be seen. That person low mood. Then the person will have a distorted view of themselves and the world and life in general. That's the distortion in thinking. So the cognition is changed about himself, life, and so on and so forth. For example, the person, you and I, having no problem like that, we see our lives tomorrow, we are dreaming great things in the future, big family, maybe great books you write and stuff like that. But for somebody who has undergone this, there's a problem. They cannot. Their life is like it's like it's a cul-de-sac, There's an end because they can see their end. They don't see long life and brilliant life and good life. So there's that distortion now in their thinking.
All right.
So those are
you've mentioned depression. So many people are conversant with this depression, and so many people have been victim of this condition, especially during these unprecedented times of COVID-19.
Yes.
What's the line? What line differentiates depression and PTSD?
PTSD encompasses things like disorders like anxiety, mainly, right? Because of fear involved, in facing horrific incidences, and then also there will be some, as I said, depressive symptoms. Depression is simply slowed, like one's life is in slow motion. Everything is lowered down. Everything is down. Is hypo. See, while anxiety is hyper. Ptsd, you see all this. Somebody being keyed up, not being able to sleep, and try to avoid being very careful and things like that. So, so there's that little component there. And Dr. Frank Jenga, who heads this task force on mental health in Kenya, has observed that PTSD comes together with anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and things like that. And that's also my clinical experience. Yeah.
All right. Now, how prevalent is the case of PTSD in Kenya?
very difficult to pinpoint where we are as a country because of lack of comprehensive and coordinated research in this area. But some people have done research with some populations in this country. But let me say this before we get to that, that not everybody who faces a stressor ends up having PTSD. Okay, the first reaction will cause everybody. If you are in a horrific car accident, or you survive a house fire, or thieves come and break into your house and beat you up and take all your stuff, you will be disturbed for some time, isn't it?
But doesn't mean that you have developed PTSD.
No. It has to, those symptoms and that reaction has to be sustained up to 1 month. All right, so that you can qualify for that diagnosis.
All right.
So those disturbances that take shorter than that, we call them acute stress disorder. So about 70% of people who undergo these incidences or events, natural or man-made, do not develop PTSD, 70%. About 30 to 20% will develop PTSD. That's what we are researching.
All right, Father Ndolo. Now, with time to take a break, we'll be right back and we'll start with the statistics to get to know more about the statistics, and of course, just refer to some of the cases and how we can link it up with PTSD. All right?
Right.
Okay, quite an interesting discussion right here on mental health, and the people that you truly trust to protect you turn against you. How does it work out? We take a short breather. We'll be right back with more on this.
Ekaristi. Sakramenti ya Ekaristi ni sakramenti ya mwili na damu ya Yesu Kristo aliye kweli katika maumbo ya mkate na divai.
Kupata Ekaristi takatifu.
Ekaristi. Sakramenti ya Ekaristi ni sakramenti ya mwili na damu ya Yesu Kristo aliye kweli katika maumbo ya mkate na divai.
Kupata Ekaristi takatifu kama skiza tuni yako, tuma neno skiza likifuatwa na nambari 738100271 kwa 811.
You are watching Capuchin TV. For any complaints, comments, or compliments on our programming, you can either write to us on info@capuchintv.co.ke, or you can call us directly on 0717 424 866. Your complaint shall be addressed within 7 days. Remember to keep a copy of your communication with us. Keep watching Capuchin TV, your Catholic identity.
All right, welcome back, and thank you so much for keeping tabs with us. Now, we are living at a time that you experience a lot of pressure. There are so many stressors left, right, and center. And this has also seen, or we have witnessed, an increase in the number of murder, suicide cases, silent suffering that continues to cause interminable, ghastly, horrific bloodbaths in our country. But what is it? What is it that we are doing wrongly? We try to make you understand by bringing you this mental health talk. This is our second session, and in studio today I have a counseling psychologist, Father Francis Ndolo from the Catholic Diocese of Kitui. We are talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. What does it have to do with what you've been witnessing, especially among the young generation? What is happening surely? So talk to us 0717-424-866, or just drop your feedback on our social media platforms. That's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So we continue with the discussion. Father Ndolo, welcome back to our second session.
Thank you.
Before we went for a break, we were trying to understand the statistics, the prevalence of PTSD in Kenya specifically.
Yeah.
So you were telling us about the percentages. So how widespread is it in Kenya?
Yeah, as I said, there is a comprehensive study about this for the larger population. But there have been people who have done, you know, some research with some populations. So I think that can give us a pointer as to maybe where we are as a country, if we can extrapolate those or try to generalize those to be speaking also for the general population. So for example, we have somebody did a research after the post-election violence 2007-2008. And the person did the research in 2018 at my Mahio, where there were some IDPs congregated or staying. So J. Musau and others, he did that study, and they found that the prevalence of PTSD among that group there was 62.1%. Okay. Okay, 62.1%. And you remember post-election violence, you see what happened. I happened to go there to help. I was not in this country, but when I came, having done trauma, I wanted to go there and see for myself how it presents, because I expected, because of the horrific things that you were seeing on the TV and reading in the newspaper. And I went there, and sure, there were people telling you how their loved ones were mutilated as they watched, how they survived a spear stamp, or fire, or severe beating, stuff like that. So you'll expect among people like these IDPs who really underwent for quite some time through this violence, presenting such a high percentage of PTSD, there, 62.1%. Then another research was done with abused kids in Kenyatta Hospital in 2013 by C.A. Ombaka and others. And abused children. See, this would be children who have been abandoned, like you heard me say. Children who have been had experienced a lot of violence, beatings, starvation, even sexual violence, things like that. And then if they found that 49% of those children had PTSD. See, so you can see 62.1 for 49%. Those are very high numbers there. Then we have others who have also done research in other places. Like, for example, we have P. Ochieng and others also did a lot of research with adolescents in the informal settlements in Kajiado South. They found that those young people who are going to school there in those informal settlements, why informal? Because they had run away from some problem. And they found that the prevalence was 40%. So you see, those are very big numbers: 49, 40, 62, and 49. So those are big numbers. So that's why I'm saying people have done studies like that for a small group like that. So, but this is not very widespread. Okay. So it's for generalization, so that you can say this is it for Kenya. But
thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Father Ndolo. Now, let's get to the core of this discussion. The kind of violence and bloodshed that you've been witnessing, especially between people who are once or who happen to be in a relationship or who happen to love each other. So this is something that you've witnessed, and we've also seen that our our law enforcers like police officers, they have also been involved in these gory murder-suicide cases, including medics themselves. Like last month, there's this Nakuru doctor who injected the 2 kids with a very poisonous substance and also killed himself. So could this be due to PTSD, or is something else that can be linked to that?
Thank you for that question. You know, problems like those do not have, cannot have one cause, but a multiplicity of them. And PTSD, sure, and other mental health problems is one of the factors. Say, for example, as you heard me say, I said, people are exposed to just details. And our first responders, nurses, police people, and others, people working in emergency rooms in the hospitals, they will be exposed to all these details all the time. For example, say a police officer is investigating murder, okay, or rape. You see that they will be interviewing a lot of people and will be hearing all these things.
Certainly.
All these things, interviewing the victims, and will be hearing all these things day in, day out for many years. Nurses, you know, people coming from accident scenes, people come with stab wounds, come with puncture cuts and all this. When they experience that, they will react. So PTSD is here. PTSD is here because we as Kenyans do have all those things that I've talked about here. We have floods in this country. We have had tribal clashes in this country. As we are saying, we have domestic violence or violence between people who differ and all that kind of a thing. We have heard of police brutality many times. Now, we be careful here because it's like a chicken and egg kind of situation. Those people you have cited, people who have done these horrific things, maybe they themselves were having problems to do with PTSD or with the depression. You see, like we have had. Let me say that people who undergone these horrific incidences will their perception of reality changes. You know, their cognition, their view about others, the view about life in general, the meaning of life, and what is good and what is bad. You have also heard me say that some people will, in order to mask their problem, they will go into drug abuse and you know, be involved in reckless behavior. You have heard me say there will be anger outbursts. You see, so those people, somebody who is having anger issues, somebody whose perception of reality is changed, somebody who is into drugs and stuff like that, can do all those things, isn't it? Then those people who are victims, the cycle repeats themselves. Some of them will have PTSD. And so I agree with you that some of these things that we are hearing, they have one way or the other to do with the PTSD. Maybe child abuse, like we have said, somebody had a very, very difficult childhood. Somebody was abused, somebody was neglected, abandoned, repeatedly abused, verbally, sexually, and so forth. And when we say in psychology that somebody was abused, will always abuse the other, unless there's some mitigating factor in between them.
Thank you so much. Now, you mentioned earlier on in our first session, you mentioned war or combat as one of the precursors of PTSD, PTSD rather. So, is it possible that our KDF soldiers who have been in the front line in war-stricken areas could have it? And what is the percentage?
Sure. If they are there, you know, in war, they experience, you know, we go out, 10 of us, 4 don't come back. These are our friends. These are people we know. We saw them, you know. And you remember one of the way to be exposed to this is seeing a friend or a relative undergoing this, or yourself surviving. So that's what happens in war situations. So I'm sure our soldiers have encountered that. We have had the reports. Many of them have died there, have got injured. They also injure, they also kill out there. So sure, there will be a certain percentage that will have this. The same with the police, as they look at they deal with all these details, and also as they also chase bad guys. They will be shot at, they will shoot, they will kill, and they will see all this. So for police, for example, they have recognized there's this problem, just like you hinted before, that we have been having issues with the police where junior officers are turning their guns against their colleagues, and also police being very brutal, maybe individuals, because it's not the whole police force, it's individuals. An individual who may be having PTSD there, that is not recognized or treated, and is having a gun, and then he's dealing with people who annoy him, and anger is there, and maybe somebody might do stuff. That's the experience elsewhere in the world where people meet all this. Then you remember now the National Police Service Commission has recognized this problem, and he says that 113 police officers are now being treated for mental distress. 104 are being assessed for whether they are suitable to continue with the work. You see, because they can see this person is very disturbed, and this can be a danger to others and to himself and to the public also. So they are doing that. They have also have counsellors. They have sent counsellors to that one counties, and they are recruited 16 counsellors to deal with this. And this is because they have been awakened to this reality because of many cases of suicide among the force, in the force, attacks to family members by police officers, police officers' families, attack on colleagues, as we have said.
All right, now
KDF, like we asked KDF, I haven't gotten good research on that, but there have been indicators. Washington Post, that paper, American paper, in 2020, did some investigation and found that there were a lot of problems with KDF coming out from there. Because America is a country that has been into all kinds of war. Vietnam, now Afghanistan has just ended, and all that. And there have a lot of people who have come, a lot of soldiers who have come home. And at one study says that many who have come home die from issues to do with PTSD and other mental health disorders than die in combat. You see, and it's the same pattern: disruption of families. One cannot hold a job, cannot keep a job because of the way their life has been, destroyed in social ways, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So now, could you please share with us the available interventions for people with PTSD in terms of treatment and the best advice for them to go about the symptoms?
Right. Okay. This is the main thrust of my being here, right? That I want the public to know that there's such a thing as mental health issues. Okay. There's depression, clinical depression is a problem. PTSD is a problem. Panic attacks and other. I want the public to know that, and these are problems just like malaria, just like typhoid, just like the other, and they have symptoms, and then they have causes, and then there's modalities of treatment. Because of the ignorance that is pervasive in our community, you find that people live with this problem, and they don't know what it is. It's very confusing. Somebody's dreaming, somebody's screaming at night, somebody's very violent all of a sudden. We don't know why. Then we start talking about, like down in my place, we talk about Capuchin or witchcraft or other people, demonic possession and stuff like that, which is not the case. It is, this person is sick and needs help. Talking about help that you can give to these people, there are two things. One is psychotherapy or counseling. Big name for counseling. we have several modalities of treatment, many counseling techniques. I will single out 3. And one of them is called exposure, prolonged exposure therapy. That's one of them, that where the one of the symptoms that they kind of disables somebody is avoidance. And with the prolonged exposure, this person will be exposed to what they fear, guided and in the secure environment where the therapist takes the person through that, so that they can take care of the extreme reactions, so that the person does not get re-traumatized. Prolonged exposure therapy with very good ratings of cures or relief for people. The other one is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's one of the oldest interventions we have, coming from 1950s. And cognitive behavioral therapy, which tries to attack the cognition. Like you have heard me say, it is somebody's thinking pattern changes. So cognitive behavioral therapy will be able to deal with that. And they say, when you and I, if we are confronted with a stressor, the way you react, the way I react will be determined by the way you appraise, the way you interpret what this means for me. This has happened to me. What does that mean? What does that mean to
All
me?
right.
So cognitive behavioral therapy will do with that very quickly. Then the other one is EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is the new thing in the market now. Very powerful. And many counselors in this country are being trained, and I asked them to be able to Google EMDR Kenya, and they'll be able to see this very, very powerful modality.
Thank you for that.
Lastly, drugs.
All right. Okay.
Drugs. They are antidepressants. They are very, very, very powerful. Prozac, Zoloft, and the others. They will be able to be able to do this. So once one is diagnosed, there is help there. There is therapy. There is also medication that can reduce some of the stress and other things, and then therapy. The best way is combination of both medication and therapy.
Okay, so now our time is up, but briefly in a few seconds, tell us what role does the church play in supporting or helping people with PTSD?
Like I've said, counseling is a very new concept in our population, a larger population in this country. People are waking up to this. Actually, it is HIV/AIDS that woke up people to this reality that somebody can be counseled to face some, when they are facing some adversity or they are facing some stressful situation. And this instance that the knowledge of counseling and the availability of counselors is a problem in this country. Many people with problems of PTSD, depression, and others will always resort to, they will go to the church for prayer, for guidance from Father or from the pastor or the imam, go to their religious leader. So the role the church can play is just to assist people. Let them preach peace, preach hope, give people hope. Start programs that will give people hope. Things that will strengthen the community, because one of the key ways people can get cured, even if we have therapy and medication, is being in community, loving, understanding community. So when the church strengthens families, strengthens groups, like jumuiyas, small Christian communities, people meet and they check on one another. So and so is sick, let's go and say hi. So and so I lost their loved one, let's go see. That's very helpful. Then the message of Jesus about hope, them being even whatever, despite you going through very hard situations, having these horrific things happening in your life, God is there and God wants your prayer. That's
absolutely
hope. But I also caution, there is another emerging problem where people are told, instead of people being taught to unite and help each other, forgive each other, treat each others fair, there's another group coming talking about talking about, you know, when you have a problem, it's your aunt, it's your uncle has bewitched you, your aunt, your grandfather is the one who was buried, I don't know, born under your bed. Is somebody who has taken your clothes away and done this stuff. There are people who have come, and this is what they are mongering. This is what they are spewing out there in the public without any justification from the Bible or from any study, because of money. There's a small group of leaders, we church leaders, who are doing that. That's very bad, because instead of putting people together, we are dividing people. And if somebody is traumatized and comes to an environment which is toxic with that kind of thing, that the person has no chances of really recovering from this.
Thank you so much, Father Francis Ndolo, for creating time for this important discourse. Now more than ever, we really need continuous and sustained discussion on mental health, because so much is happening that can really be linked directly into the cognitive system of human beings. Thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Thank you.
All right, it is a very broad subject right here, and we will be bringing you candid conversations on mental health, and just to help you understand the best way, the signs and symptoms, the red flags, and how best you can go about it when you happen to have a loved one, or if it's yourself going through this. How can you go about it? Seek help where you can. If you're not able to, just talk to us, send us an SMS. We promise you it's going to be private. We're going to help you the best way we can. We can link you up with the available counselors and psychologists to make sure that you find help. So talk to us, continue sending your feedback, your SMS 0717-424-866. Remember, you can also make a call or just an inbox our social media platform, that is Capuchin Television Network. You can also inbox Sasha Elizabeth, that's on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, at this point, I would like to wrap it up, because there is another program that is set to start shortly, and I have been working with, as usual, my indomitable team, and our camera persons have been Vincent Kariuki, Agneta Denya, and Iris Ondiso. And I would also like to extend my gratitudes to the team on the other side of the gallery. Our sound engineer has been Frederick Ocheng, our visual mixer Christopher Odhiambo, and Ann Hija. Thank you, Peter Mwangi. He's always on the transmission, making sure that this comes to you in the best way possible. My name is Sasha Elizabeth. And before I clock out, allow me to acknowledge Vincent Baraza. He is part of the team. Thank you so much for being with us, dear viewer. Keep your questions coming, keep your concerns coming, especially about mental health disorders, and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as we can.
Capuchin TV, kitambulisho Katoliki.
Living Faith Kids.
Daily devotions for Africa.
Mark chapter 8 verse 21.
Matthew chapter 5 verse 44 to 45.
We have a short story about Doreen and Barney.
I'm going to follow Jesus.